This is the Lekker Rugby Pod with Harry Jones and MV Welman.
It's the Lekker Rugby Pod. It's the Lekker Rugby Lament Pod, the honorary title we have for this morning. And Harry Jones is here. He was at the game to watch South Africa lose the game firsthand. How's it, Harry?
Hello, MV. No, it's not. This is not Lekker. This is like the agony we have to walk through together. It's a mourning. It's a grief. I'm not overstating the case. And I'm also not taking away anything, and I know you're not either, from Kieran Frawley's majestic drop goals and the fight that Ireland showed to be in there at the end, to be come back on and then take the lead again is hard sometimes.
Yeah, before we get into the nitty-gritty of it, I think one thing that stood out for me is we pride ourselves on being, tough guys and mongrels and never let go and never give up. And I think Ireland taught us a bit of a lesson in that respect. I mean, if you ever seen it, never say die attitude yesterday, you saw it there.
No, fair play. And I think it's very important, whatever we're about to say next for the next 45 or 60 minutes, put that, in prefaces, which is Ireland came and played proper rugby, scrapping in the alley, in the alleyway behind the bar kind of rugby, which has always been Bok rugby. There was more blood on our faces than theirs. Most of their blood came from one guy's ear. Our blood was coming from every orifice and even from our egos. And there was a bit of a stick-to-itiveness of like, I'm going to keep doing this because we think it's going to work next time. If I have to hear one more time about Quaka Smith's battle stats, and I'm not knocking Quaka, the guy plays, braver than anyone on the planet. But Caelan Doris owned him for 2 matches in a row because there's things that Caelan Doris can do with his size and wingspan and bump ability that Quaka doesn't. When Quaka gets bumped, he goes backwards. When Doris gets bumped, he goes forwards. I think there were critical moments in the match where we were coming off and on with blood replacements, blood been in, out. There was a difficult of continuity. And I think that's something that coaches have to take on the chin. I'm not blaming any of the players. I don't see any players that didn't try and use their skill sets. I'm blaming the mechanic who used the wrong tool for the job.
Hmm. Yeah, somebody said this week, Quaka is like a 13 spanner. You can use him for everything. And unfortunately, a 13 spanner doesn't fit in every single nut, does it? That's the problem.
Exactly. And go forward ball in, this test reverted back to the mean, which was there were a couple of breaks. That's it. Andre Pollard finds Chesson Colby on the wing with a perfectly almost LaRue-esque pass, flat, fizzing. Chesson Colby has it in the hands. I think it's daylight, and I think he scores. And the match is won, actually. And Chesson drops it. Now, that type of thing, you're only going to get a couple of those a match. And that's the problem with having a weak 8 or a small 8 is, so where's your go forward? Quaka had 3 carries. I think those 3 tackles and about maybe 5 or 6 carries. But most of those carries came from catching the kickoff because a week ago he dropped them. So they just gave him the ball and said, what can you do? He never stepped anyone. He never broke any tackles. That's on coaches who knew that he is a impact player who can play all 3 positions if he has to. But I don't think he was the starter. And so I'm pointing at that as a hubris on the coaches, by the way. Again, not Quaka. Quaka his nose tells the story that he gave everything for every team he ever played. But I think we have to have a better news as well. And sometimes it's just going to be one of those war type matches.
Later in this pod, we're going to be talking about whether the Springboks were outcoached. I think that's quite a pertinent question, and we'll get to that just now. But I want to ask you, you were at both these games, both Loftus and Durban, Kings Park, and you noticed a noticeable difference, considerable difference between the crowds and the atmosphere and everything else. Just tell us about that a bit.
Yeah, so, Durban's quite the vibe. Umhlanga is like you're on, South Beach, Miami. It's really fun. There's a lot more Irish people in the crowd, perhaps because there's more Irish people or people who have Irish roots living in Durban in the first place. But they're very comfortable. They didn't look around with heads on a swivel, trepidation like at Loftus. And by the way, no one at Loftus abused anyone from Ireland. I'm just saying there was that feeling of it might happen. The size, just the average size, about 6 centimeters shorter in Durban than in Loftus. As far as breadth, talking about 25 kg average less in Durban. A lot of Instagram photos during critical moments, a lot of dancing Queen ABBA whilst someone is having the scrum of their life. Not really into the game. Not really into the game. A lot of beer gardens and bouncy houses and trampolines and very family friendly to the point where it didn't feel like a fortress. And I feel like Ireland enjoyed the experience. I'll give you one little tip, which is Ireland, Ireland, together standing tall. That was loud in the stadium. You know why? A third of the stadium was singing just because they didn't know why it wasn't interesting. Like they were just doing it because it's fun. Like, oh, that's a fun little sing-along song. Let's do that. And so I think that first 40 minutes was some of the worst Bok rugby that I've seen in a long time. And so I'm accusing us of taking it a little bit too lightly. Why don't we pitch one of these matches in the Karoo? Okay, on a decider against Ireland, let's make people play in Langebaan. Let's go to a high school stadium. All the money's from the TV anyway. It's not from the stands and the merch. So let's just go ahead and put it somewhere where people feel really alien and foreign. Durban feels like the most welcoming place in the world. I want to get a house there. Let's go. But on a rugby match, it did not feel like a home fortress. And I'm not trying to offend anyone in Durban. I'm just saying it didn't feel like there was shock and awe.
It didn't feel like Loftus, let's be honest.
And I wonder about that on a series like that. Why not just keep all the players in one place, right? You get your hotel, you get your training ground, you stay at altitude, you embrace the home advantage. Every other team always plays all their top tests. Like Ireland only plays in Dublin, only. All Blacks always play at Eden Park for deciders. It's always at Twickenham in England. I'm not saying anything novel here. I'm just saying when we go to a place like Durban, it doesn't feel like we are really maximizing our home edge.
Yeah. Now, there was a petition going around before the game that we should never play any sport again in the Durban, either cricket or rugby or soccer, it doesn't matter, because we always end up losing over there. Exactly like you said, it's too much of a lekker atmosphere, no pun intended. But the one thing that bothers me is we have to now beat Ireland or Portugal next weekend by about 200 points, just to, satisfy the need for blood that we have now, because we're going to be in purgatory for in a couple of years now. Past 4 games against Ireland, we've lost 3. I mean, that just doesn't sit well with us.
They are trouble. Ireland is trouble. Ireland has a particular game set and like you said, a tough mentality that plays well against Boks. They are a tool almost like the All Blacks have always been for a long time. Of if you have to have one way of beating the Boks, they found that way, which is to dominate the breakdown. Josh van der Flair, Caelan Doris, and in this case Ty Byrne, were the better loose trio, even though Peter Steff had his 15 tackles and played like a man. Even though you could look across at Sia Khaleesi and say, there were moments. And Marco van Staden did also a man's work. I just don't think that loose trio held a candle. If you look across the rest of the teams, there's kind of parity. I wouldn't think you'd pick one front row over the other. I thought Marks was good, which is why they probably tried to take him out. The wings, I think, were kind of a wash. Midfield, you might even say that Ringrose didn't solve the problem of Creel because he actually allowed, I think he missed by 3 or 4 tackles. So maybe the midfield goes South Africa's way. Andre Pollard, I thought outplayed Crowley, made 8 for 8. Played a really good game. But you look at the loose trio. No, there was not parity there. I think they owned the ruck. We said rectification, then we changed to ructification. They ructified us. They rucked us. They rucked us, like put us over a chair and rucked us. And I think they read the ref better because, okay, we emerged, talking about bloody this and bloody that. Why were we not putting the blood on them? Why was it always smeared on our faces? So I think we have to take a long, hard look at what our loose trio and our ruck policy is going to be. You saw a change when Marks came on because Bongi was getting no play. His shoulder was banged. That was the only moment I thought that we actually crawled back into the match. So we can get into the technicalities of that, but there was a moment where we went on to like autoplay and the Boks just kept getting 3, 3, 3. And I thought, okay. I mean, Tony, I love you, Tony Brown, but this is the way you can sometimes crawl back into a match. But I still thought at the end, when it was a scramble on the ground and it was a ruck, I thought Ireland read the ref better and they played harder.
wanted to ask you, in the first half, we were absolutely nowhere. How much of that was due to the fact that we lost Willie that early, our number one plan maker and everything else? So at halftime, Rassie and the coach had the opportunity to tell the guys, listen, guys, without Willie, this is what you have to do. And you could clearly see the change in plans after the break. And like you said, we started getting back into the game. But that first 38 minutes without Willie, and I mean, Sasha is a brilliant player. He's going to be a star of the future. But he only ever played for the Stormers at fullback once, I think. Now he's in a test, basically the full game at a fullback, and he was a bit tentative in the beginning. How much did we really miss Billy's playmaking abilities?
I think that's true. I think there was an overall on-off pattern with the blood and the injuries and the question marks and coming back in. So Willie was part of that. I actually think that Sasha played a very good game in terms of being safe as houses under the ball, of good chase. I think he countered and he did some things that Willie cannot do. I think at the very, very end of the match is where we missed LaRue the most. I think our Spiders would have found a way to make a web to win that game by wasting time, by tying his shoelace 2 times and breaking it on purpose, by eating the clock, by, I don't know. I think he would have found a way, together with Andre, to make that game go on ice. Even the matter of the ball bouncing, and it's going to go into touch anyway. There's no need to touch it. Let it go out. We have a line out. We kill time. We throw it to the front. We sit down on the floor and we kick it away and we win. Yes, we missed Willie. I actually think the bigger problem, besides a small number 8 that's not really an 8 and never will be an 8, I think the bigger problem was Faf trying to ignite this particular attack. I'm not sure it works. I thought Williams it looked much better. And we didn't have enough carries. We didn't have enough rucks. So I think the kicks were about right, finally, even though Ireland kicked more. And when I've studied their 17-game winning streak, they always kicked more than the opposition when they won. So they kicked more than the Boks. We should have kicked more, but also kind of a weird, illogically, we should have also had more rucks and carries. But that, I mean, we should carry in the right places. First off, 35% territory. That's nothing. That's like us playing Romania. So, yeah, that was never going to work. And I think Faf has developed a habit of running away from the ruck, a little bit like Nick White, where he tries to make you guess. No one's guessing, Faf. You're not going to blow by anyone at this stage in your career. Grant, maybe, but Kubas, but not Faf. So I think that's a tick he's developed, and he doesn't know how to get out of it.
Well, you mentioned Ireland kicked a lot, but Ireland also kicked differently from what they did last week. I mean, they kicked much deeper. And I saw that took our newfangled Tony Brown attack out of the picture, because the players were never where they were supposed to be. That they weren't expecting that to a degree. And also the kicking moved our pack around a lot. You know, there's this myth going around that we have the biggest players in the world and the most physical. It's not really true, but they are quite big and they are quite physical. So when they started, running around, they seemed to, not find the rhythm that much. So the Ireland's kicking was much cleverer, or more clever, this week, wasn't it, compared to last week?
Yeah, and the humidity also mattered, and you're moving players, back to my point of moving people. So Ireland's on a tour, so they're already in a tour mentality. It's the final match. For them, it was such a big up to come. And I thought the humidity and moving around from high, dry altitude, and then down to the coast, it might have actually disturbed our team more, that were supposedly the home team. But you're a home team who's going to 2 very different air bases, cultures, everything. It's almost like you might have actually made most of the team, a Springbok team, feel more out of place in Durban than Ireland. So I think the move around thing is solid. I do think Ireland looked the fitter team at the end. No, I think you're right. And I think the variety of kicks, it was diagonal, it was up and under, it was long. They did a French kicking strategy, which was, let me make you, Springboks, either kick back to us now or try to launch phases. And we never got beyond 3. 4 or 5 phases, we were done every time, because like you said, it was difficult to get there. I don't think we knocked on as much as it felt like, and I don't think we got pinged as much. I think we had 8 penalties against us maybe, but it felt like a lot. So it just felt like we were playing uphill, because we started badly and then we're chasing the game, just like Ireland a week ago. and it's just difficult to chase a game down. If Ireland had lost that game, let's put it this way, that would have been known as one of the biggest chokes in Irish history, and would have been one of the biggest comebacks for the Springboks.
Good point you're making there. We've talked about this last week about the altitude and all that matters, and it's been on everybody's lips for a while now. And the Springboks trained at Loftus for weeks and weeks and weeks to be ready for Loftus, and then moved down to Durban and choked on the nice thick air there. You're absolutely right. I never thought about it like this. That's a bit of a coaching oversight once again. You know, I don't like that. It upsets me greatly.
And if you don't like it that way, you could say we'll have the second test in Soweto or the second test in Ellis Park. So you could also stay, a Centurion sort of in the middle,
or
and then, still have that home base. Yeah, stay somewhere where not just culturally, but also the isolation factor. The thing about Durban is once you're inside that mix and you're on the beach, you're going to the same restaurants as the Irish, you're hanging out with Irish journalists. I don't know, you just become too friendly. It becomes a friendly match, and we're not supposed to have friendlies.
Yeah, I must be honest. I thought, yes, the crowd once again excelled at singing the anthem. They did from what I saw on TV, and we're going to walk all over them. But no, let's leave that there. Let's talk about players quickly. You talked about Pollard. You were impressed by Pollard. I know Pollard kicked very well. Pollard cost us his poor goal line kicking, if you ask me, the dropouts.
The dropouts? So that's obviously something someone's telling him to do. So I'm hesitant to criticize Quaka as a man because he's doing what he can with his body. Someone's picking him. He's not picking himself. I thought Pollard's been told to do contestables from dropouts. And I even think some of the box kicks from Williams and de Klerk, although I didn't like how shallow they were, someone's telling them to do that. And they're setting up a four-man chase. I think the point there was they wanted Ireland to play all the rugby. And like you said, Ireland was disciplined, and they only played rugby when they wanted to play rugby. Their run meters were like less than 300, Ireland. But look how consequential they were, and look how their tries were scored and how none of our tries were scored. So I'm with you on the fact that shouldn't have happened. I just don't know if I blame Pollard for it. I don't know if he's allowed to, under this coaching regime, switch it up. I think he has to follow orders. But when he did have breaks, when that 35 flat pass fizzing to Cheslin was the game winner to me. And then I think also saw Pollard gather the guys and say, here's what we're going to do. He was very animated. He also took on people. He lowered his shoulder and erased an Irishman. I forget who it was. You could tell he was up for it. And I don't think Pollard cost us the match, is what I'm saying. I think there was a terrible start with people falling off tackles. People didn't get cleaned. So here's the thing also with Quaka, when he tries to get over the ball, he gets cleaned too easily. He's like Michael Hooper in that respect. So I think if you're going to have a limpet that, sucks onto something like a real fetcher, then you have to be unable to be cleaned. Marks was only cleanable by two guys literally trying to break his leg. That's my fetcher. That's a fetcher.
That's a good entry into that Marks tackle. And there was this whole debate about the referee wanted to know whether it was number 5 or number 8 that's supposed to get the yellow card. The point I'm going to get is it should have been both of them, and one of them probably should have been a red card. If you ever saw cynical, that was cynical. They targeted at that knee. They knew Marks wasn't at his best. Reminded me of Bongi to a degree, what happened in the World Cup final. What did you think of that decision?
Yeah, before anyone bashes me for what I'm about to say, I would do the same thing because I'm not that nice and I want to win. So if my opponent comes on the field, he's declaring himself healthy for the game, but he's got a bad shoulder. All I'm thinking about is mucking up his shoulder all day long. I'll put a knee in it. I'll sit on it. I will literally take it out. So I think Marks comes on with that heavily strapped knee. Yes, it's a target. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying Irish guys. I'm not saying you're different from the rest of us, but absolutely. Do you remember the Italian props, the two of them that took Dwayne Vermeulen upside down and slammed him on his head in 2019 in Japan? And Wayne Barnes suddenly decided, I don't know why, I have to pick some. He literally said on comms, I have to pick one to red card. No, you don't. You can red card both. Like literally those two guys were helping each other spear Dwayne and end his career perhaps. So two Irish guys try to end Marks's night, possibly his career. What you can card both. You card both and let the TMO sort it out. I think that's exactly true. That was a big moment. So what I would say on that is Mark still, even with all that, he changed the ruck and it allowed us to score 3 in a row.
What I want to say next is going to be very controversial. You know, this whole nation building thing, and we're all combining behind the Springboks, and they're all walking around being superstars and adding our, autographs and whatever. And I think the fact that the Irish pitched up there being these bad guys in our faces, niggling us, Doris specifically, I thought I wanted to smack that guy, which is what you should do. I mean, don't get me wrong here. It really irritated me, and I'm not even there. And the Springboks looked like they were two men. They've been the nice guys for too long now, and suddenly they had to become the mongrels again, and they didn't know how to do it. The Irish out-mongreled them, if I can call it that. And Doris specifically knew exactly which buttons to press. He bumped this guy, bumped that guy. Who's the one guy that started pushing Pieter-Steph du Toit around as well when he was trying to talk to the ref about obstructing and the likes? Those little things, and that got under the Springbok skin, and it made them angry, and it made them worse. It made them make bad decisions and the like. And I think that niggling aspect of it, we shouldn't underestimate.
Yeah, if I was an Irish fan, I'd be really, really proud of those guys. I love the niggle. I love people who strategically winds the other guy up. It's like it's outside the bar and you want the guy to throw the first punch. I thought they were very good at that. And they did rattle us. There is a case to be made that Hungrier was the only one who really stood up. And maybe because he knows those guys. He had the most carries, the most tackles. He was offloading at will. He did push people around. He held one guy's down, his face down in the grass. The ref didn't see it, like that stuff. It was that kind of match. And I guess the vibe was interesting because there was just so much like Bollywood music and dance music, and like the timing was weird, and Beast was being rolled across in a rickshaw, and they were just like, I don't know, there was like 17 different, pep squads and stuff. It didn't feel like it fit the mood that Ireland brought. Ireland brought like, we're gonna have a brawl on the sea, on the docks, by the side of the ships, and one of us is gonna get out of here alive, and one of us is not. I'm with you there. There needed to be an enforcer. Pieter-Steph is just a worker. Sia's turning more and more into a part-time player. He wasn't really picked on form for this for the series, and although he played well in the trams on the carry, this was more of a how's your father kind of night.
Yeah. Your father wasn't all that well. I wanted to ask you specifically the fact that we were bleeding, and I said, you're bleeding, I'm bleeding, everyone's bleeding. That was a deliberate thing. Do you think, and I actually had a poll in our broadcast yesterday, we'll be broadcasting the Afrikaans commentary. Do you guys think that, I asked people, do you guys think that the Irish are deliberately targeting our players so that the impact of the bench to be negated to a degree? I mean, we lost Mostert very quickly. Hungrier came on, went off, Eben went off, came back on. A lot of things that upset the rhythm of the Springboks. And when the bench eventually came on, they did make a difference, but it wasn't the same impact as we had last week, because most of them have been on the field, or some of them have been on the field for a while already. Do you think that was a deliberate target to actually, make sure the bench isn't what couldn't do what it's supposed to do?
That's actually, I see why you're asking a question. And I think my answer is no, not deliberately in the sense of a programmatic target. First of all, it's too hard to do that in the pell-mell of a match. There's too much dynamism. Eben just has this bad stitch, in the corner of his eye, and it kept opening up. The stitches kept being pulled out. The only target, I think, was Marks. When Marks came on, I think that was a deliberate, let's go for the knee. It just looked too obvious. It was almost like, pincering you, like a pincer move, like a UFC move. Everything else, I think, was just straight up rugby, and they were playing harder. I think they were running into collisions harder than we were. But I think you're right in the sense that if you're going to have a 6-2 immoral, bomb squad, Matt Williams hates, then every good thing in the world has a bad side, right? If you put too much stock in one thing and I take it away from you, then it's a problem. So if your bomb squad is what you want, the 6 guys running on symbolically, here we come, reinforcements, the cavalry has landed. But I don't let you do that. And I even take the drama out of it. And it's on again, off again, on again, off again. Who is Salman Murat? Is he on the team or not? Why are we picking him? Is he a ceremony as well? It starts to become a problem. And it's not like we don't have personnel. Do we have loose forwards who can get over the gain line from a standing start? Yes, we do. Do we have locks that are proper bastards? Yes. Do we have a bouncer or two as a loose forward? Yes, we do. So it did feel like we got outcoached, to your macro question.
Yeah, we'll get to that just now. One thing I'm a little concerned about, that's now Willie's second concussion in about a month. He got concussed in that semi-final against Leinster, and now once again. I wonder if he's going to be, ready for the championship.
Yeah, if I'm his friend, if I'm just Willie's friend and I'm his neighbor, I'm his brother-in-law, I'm going to tell him to take a really hard look at that. He's done a lot of things already. He doesn't have to prove anything more. And you want to be able to play with your kids and your grandkids, and you want to be able to move around and not have, unduly accelerated cognitive loss. On a rugby level, it does look like he's having a really brilliant season and has plenty of rugby left in him. And I think he was one of the form players in the ERC. And probably his absence for the Bulls at strategic times in the Boks have just cost the Bulls and the Boks 2 matches, like you said, possibly.
No, I agree. The concern for me, apart from the concussion, is the fact that he's 34 years old. And we don't have a natural successor to him,
You don't see Willemse as that or Sasha,
No.
because I think they could develop into that. But it takes, you know what it takes? It took Willie 5 or 6 years to become Willie. I mean, it's not like he was not the finished article when he started. And both of these cats, Gaza and Sasha, they're pretty young, right? They're still 24, 23, 22. So Sasha's actually 21, right? They looked comfortable, but they're different players in the sense that Willie was really good at unlocking packed defenses. And so the Tony Brown thing is all about, if we find ourselves in the red zone against a fully assembled defense, we have had struggles unlocking that without Willie. In fact, every single try that was scored against a packed, formed, assembled defense that was not a chase ball, lost ball, spill ball, had Willie's name written all over it, or had Damien Dialende just bashing someone through.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned the word game plan. Now, let's get on to that now. And we asked the question last week, is Tony's way really Springbok rugby? And I think that question is more pertinent now than it's ever been before. In 2 games, we scored 1 try that we made, which was Kirtley's try. Both Colby's tries against Ireland last week were sort of fortuitous. James Lowe screwed up.
Yeah.
And it was Chases and
touchdown,
yeah, we only made 1 try. With all the newfangled, Tony Brown way of playing and everything. And you mentioned this week, and we got quite a lot of views on that, it's all about speed. And when Grant Williams came on, things looked a lot better when the speed actually came into play. And Grant Williams, I must be honest, reminded me of DuPont a couple of times. That one kick he did, and he charged it down and forced Ireland over the touchline. And then the Springbok screwed up the line out once again. But without speed, it's not going to work. And at the moment, I don't think it's working all that well either. Actually, I'll go as far to say I don't think it's working at all.
So I guess the disclaimers would be it's early yet. And this kind of system, just like Felix Jones's for England, which does work now, didn't work at first, probably 5 or 6 matches. So that's the one thing. And attack systems do take longer to bed in than defensive systems. Instincts have to change inside people who played together for a very long time. Pollard, Dialende, and Creel were on the field in 2015 in a semi-final at Twickenham. So that's a long time to play a certain way and then switch. That being said, if Pollard's pass to Chess and Colby sticks, and it was a good one, the game is different, and Tony Brown looks like a genius who manufactured a phase 2 try from deep. Second or third, I do think I see your point, that to me, Tony Brown's system is only an adjunct. It's not the main. I don't think Bok rugby should ever turn to Kiwi rugby or to Japanese rugby. But I do like the change of pace in the scenario I just pointed out, which is you find yourself 15 meters out, so there's no way to mole drive it from the line out, and you need to construct some kind of ornate starter play with a second and third choice before the grubber or kickover. That hasn't been our forte. So Tony does have those systems. He has a playbook, and you would imagine it would work. My 4th point is Ireland's bloody good. Ireland doesn't let you score 3 tries. Ireland is like South Africa. It's difficult to beat. Like Conor Murray said last night, the Boks are really hard to beat. They had to give their eye tooth, their wisdom tooth, and their mother's tooth to win. And even then, it took a 42-meter wobbly drop goal. I mean, it's not all doom and gloom, but then again, it's gloom and doom because I'm mad, I'm cross, I don't like it. I don't want to hear Irish people talking in my brain for a year now, and I have to because they beat us on home soil.
And there's no third test, man. What the hell were you guys thinking? Come on. Yes. You know,
and don't tell me about don't do the aggregate score thing and go, we beat you by more. Like, come on. It was a drawn series, and you got to give them credit. Tip the hat. And we have to look ourselves in the mirror, because the only reason why Boks in New Zealand always the 1-2, 1-2 in the world is because we don't accept mediocre results. We always say you have to change. You got to do better. Okay, Portugal. But in the Rugby Championship now, it makes all those matches even more important. You come out with a 2-0 sweep of Ireland with distance, number 1 to number 2. Suddenly you can almost do more experimentation against Australia. Now you have to, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
It's going to be a vibe where we're slipping. And then you can see guys like Jerry Flannery and even Dwayne Vermeulen, on the chopping block, because is it working or not? Are the forwards really bullying people? I mean, we're never the smartest team in the whole world, but flip it, we were tough. We were hard. There's no one harder than a Bok pack. The French say it. Did Ireland say that in the locker room last night at the end? Did they say, oh, yeah, those guys were harder than us? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe they said, we're just as hard.
They said, we showed them. That's what they said. While we're talking about game plan, something that bothered me was the decision-making of the Boks on the field. Stupid little mistakes, like Quaka trying to pick up the ball when he was certain to score a try. He should have just kicked it ahead. He was fast enough. I mean, he was picked on the bench as a sort of a backline covering player because he's that fast. And Sasha taking that kick into touch. I mean, there's people saying that if he didn't do that, James Lowe might have scored a try. And that led to Ireland getting the line out and led to Ireland scoring a drop goal. And then thirdly, I mean, we've got so many bad memories of drop kicks. Australia 99, Larkham and the likes. Why were we not protecting better against a potential drop kick? This is the second drop kick. We knew they were going to do it, but he was in no man's land. No one close to him. And Colby just tried to, make a spiel of it being obstructed and everything else. But the point is, he was just in a comfortable slot there, no hassles, no pressure whatsoever, and he just made the drop kick. Little things like that bothered me.
Yeah, mental. What do they call it? Like things you have, the controllables. So just like in business, in life, in any sport, you really sweat more over the controllables and what you did wrong there than the uncontrollables. If someone makes a brilliant play, if someone can slot with time off the clock, 42 meters, drop goal, you just tip your hat, it's like good shot, better shot than me. It's what leads to it. So you have a scrum. Let me think this through. You had a line out. You had a set piece in their 22, and somehow you find yourself having to defend against a drop goal to lose the match. Yeah, that shouldn't happen. So that's time. That's time management, clock management, and what you do there. In the newspapers, I'm seeing everyone saying that it was Colby running the ball into touch, but I'm sure it was Sasha.
It was Sasha.
And so it's the one mistake that Sasha makes in the whole match. How cruel is that? That's Test rugby, right? That is where you go, everyone around you, if it's Billy, he's telling you, he's shouting in your ear the whole time, no, don't touch, let it go. Whatever you got to say to make sure that you don't touch it, because it's in touch off Ireland, and the game is over. You ice it. It's super easy. Then you put Achi up, one-handed catch, pull it to earth, fall down, tumble around, game over. That's where you do it. As far as the drop attempt, if you're able to slot it from 42, no one can block it. I mean, he took the ball way back there, and he knew he had the leg. He's a big fellow too. He's this old school 6'3", probably unlisted, probably 6'4". Got long levers. He banged it. In the train, the warming up, he was slotting it from beyond the 50 on the drop. Dwayne was having a laugh with him, actually. Dwayne was doing NFL throws to Frawley. There was a feeling, it was a very friendly vibe in Durban, but it did look like to me that obstruction was an obstruction. I wouldn't have called it. If that had been the decider, if the ref had called that up and said obstruction, I wouldn't have really felt good about it. That would have been a very soft penalty and a soft disallowed drop goal.
Yeah, there was some footage from behind the posts where Doris moved ever so slightly to his left, but I mean
Yeah,
there was
he
still
did.
water in front of him and everything else. There's no way that was obstruction. I mean that's just normal.
No, if you're able, and Froley apparently is, to kick it from beyond the 10 on a drop goal, I don't know if you get there. Yeah.
And the nice thing about Froley is he made up for his Champions Cup screw up, that last drop goal that he missed. No? He must have slept on this one for a bit.
If I was Irish, I would wonder if Froley was all along, at 26 years old, if he all along was the natural heir instead of Crowley. He's not a bad fly off, but he didn't really impress me in this series.
No, I agree with you. Anyway, so let's talk about the out coaching part of it. And like I said, of the past 4 times we played against Ireland, we lost 3. And the Irish obviously learned some lessons from last weekend. They played differently. They played, to me, a bit more clever than the Boks did, and the Boks just tried more of the same. And like you said, Quaka didn't shape up last week. They gave him another shot, and he once again didn't shape up, not the player, the position, or the person that should have played in that position in this kind of game plan and the likes. Do you think that Rassie maybe was a little, outgunned here in terms of coaching?
Yeah, I think Irish coaches have outfoxed him and his team of coaches. He's had change in his coaches, so we could say both sets. There's 3 areas of coaching where you can have a big difference. One is in the mentals, getting your players up and managing their psyches correctly. I wouldn't really fault that. I think the Boks were up for all that. The second one is where you play. More importantly than anything than how, but where you play is coaching. It's hard to see quadrants when you're playing on the field. It's hard to see where you're supposed to be. And coaches are the water boys run that onto you and say, remember, in red sector, we're not going to do that, but we do in green. We're a little bit too far away, our pillar, our post. Hey, Jesse, you're lagging behind the fold. Those things are coaching because it's really impossible, unless you're a player like Billy, who's a coach on the field. It's very impossible to see that and feel that on the pitch. I think Pollard's pretty good at that too, by the way. You want that from your 9, 10, and 15. If you're not getting that, if Sasha's playing his first test match at 15, that's going to be run-on information. So I would say that Osborne playing his first or second test at 15 got good coaching, and then they got out-coached there. The third thing coaches do for you is physical. It's igniting. It's strength and conditioning. It's managing minutes. It did look like to me we might have outplayed a couple of guys, and we had options. Vilko Low, Thomas Detoy, Kubas Reinach. We had other options. We didn't have to rag Faf, who's had a long season in Japan. We didn't have to just, play someone into the ground. I mean, if Iban's going to be leaking blood on off all the time, maybe you just don't play him for that match. I don't know. I do think there was some chess moves. They felt more comfortable putting on people and getting the best out of them, whether that was S&C, psyche, man management, whatever. That was good. And then, like you said, the kicks landed in the right spots. They were in the awkwards. It seemed like, and they were very disciplined, like, we're going to just kick to Quaka forever because we don't mind Quaka carrying the ball. We don't mind it.
Yeah.
Whereas we kept giving, we would kick on Low, even though every time Low caught the ball, you had a kind of a bit of a, no, don't do that, because he's got that kind of magic. It didn't look like we knew where we were kicking sometimes.
All right. In terms of the series now, World Rugby or SA Rugby or wherever, that's now forced us to not have a winner or a deciding test. So we have to make up our minds who we think won this game or won this series. What's your take on it?
Yeah, so for guys like us, for dyed-in-the-wool fans who live and die on this stuff, we actually, the unsatisfactoriness of this is actually okay to us in some ways. It allows everyone to go away with their story. And for a year, we're seething with resentment that you still don't treat us as the world champs. And then Ireland feels like we, too full of ourselves. We talked to 8-9 pod, we talked to Daniel Herbert, the chair of Rugby Australia, and he said Rugby has never managed to find a way to make this type of test series marketable and profitable. That the casual fan, the one guy that was walking by me 5-6 times the second half in Durban, drunk and getting more beer, or the woman who was like waving her flag in everyone's face, casual fan who doesn't know the rock, doesn't understand the breakdown, could not tell you the laws of rugby. They actually need deciders, wins, champions, tournaments to like something. I don't care about that. For me, an end of the year tour is amazing. I love, the idea of going and playing. And I keep in my mind the 48 to 43 test record for over 100 years. But it's true that in this situation, it felt like we could have created a proper, I don't know if it's a tournament, but something, call it something. And then the casual fan, the one that, just got the tickets from a friend and went, they will get more out of it because they say, oh, we won a trophy. Not these made up trophies and shields and stuff that no one cares about.
Or ever heard about.
Yeah.
I saw the Irish Twitter is going crazy about, I think, the Rayburn Shield or something stupid. Looks
It's
like
the Rayburn Shield, yeah.
Another wheel cap or up cap. Nothing special whatsoever. All right. Did we answer the question of who won the series? Do you think? Or was it a plain out draw?
Ireland is happier today. So whilst it is definitely a drawn series and goes down in the history books as a drawn series, it's only the second time Ireland won in South Africa, and it's the first time Ireland went to South Africa on a series and didn't lose the series. So advantage Ireland happier.
Yeah, it feels like that.
If Boks really are serious about being the best in the world, they will not be happy. They'll be very unhappy and should be unhappy.
So you can have your
covered
cup.
in blood.
We'll
too.
take the World Cup. Well, I'm talking about that, the World Cup. This is a contentious thing once again. South Africa has won 2 World Cups in a row now. They've won 4 overall. But the World Cup is a knockout tournament. It's one tournament every 4 years. Are we really the world champions? We can't consistently win over an extended period of time. I know in theory, that's what it's measured against. But can we really say we're the best team in the world if we don't consistently win? I mean, there's a stat going around that how many games it took for the World Cup winner to lose after winning the World Cup. And South Africa is just way at the bottom. First test we lost after 2019, and the second test we lost or something like that. Does it really make us the world champions? In my heart of hearts, I can't say that it does. It doesn't feel like that it sits right.
No, there's not really, like in tennis, it's sort of the ATP rankings, but then you have the Grand Slams, and golfers will tell you the same thing. Like you could be, what's the guy with the weird swing? Jim Furyk. Kind of get second all the time. And if you were just going with rankings and earnings, he'd be like top. But then you don't think of him. You think of Tiger Woods. You think of Jack Nicklaus. I think there is more weighting to a World Cup, and everyone, if they were held down and given truth serum, or we made Andrew Porter bleed out of his other ear, he would admit that he would take the World Cup over anything else. We know that because everyone who does win the World Cup says that, and everyone in their memoirs says, I only wish I had a World Cup. So we'll give Boks that, but no, there's not really a linear or a heavyweight boxing champion type belt kind of thing. Like we would have the belt. So we have the belt, and you got to take it away from us, and we still have it. We started the year at number 1. We're still number 1 by the skin of our underpants. I think we should stop saying it so much and demanding, fealty and everyone must bow and approach the throne. That's ridiculous. But we have the thing everyone else wants. I'll just say it that way. And we have the ranking. And maybe the ranking needs to be more publicized, like the Harry Index was for clubs. Maybe they should milk that more. I think the World Rugby Index is actually good. I think it has intelligence to it, and I think it has seasoning to it, has some peri-peri to it. I think we're okay. We're number 1, but barely. We're in an age of parity. It's not like the All Blacks that was so weird from 2010 to 2015. There might never be an era like that again, because all the professional teams share coaches, and the IP is shared. So maybe it's harder to run away from the field.
Officiating, I know we never say anything bad about the coach, the officials, but in general, what did you think of that, of the refs?
It was fine. I thought the better team won in the first test, and marginally the better team in the second test. It was close. It was probably closer in the second test to know who was the better team, but I would give Ireland the nod because their first 40 was better than our first 40 by a lot. And then to crawl back in the second half, which we won easily, actually, on the score, We had to do it with negative rugby. So yeah, I'd say that the refereeing reflected the attacking team, and it probably rewarded the attacking team a little bit over the defensive.
This weekend, it's Portugal. And I see Rassie said it's going to be a completely different team, and the guys that played in this test are going to be helping with the training and the exercise and practices and stuff until Wednesday. Just briefly, what do you expect in terms of our team this weekend?
Well, we got to build depth. We have depth, but we need functional depth. We need depth that can slot in. We don't need a Salman Murat on a bench if he's not even usable, even if everyone's got, broken legs and leaks out of their eyes. Like, what is he then? So get the man on the field and let us see whether he can drive a maul, direct a maul. Can he be the pilot of the ship of the maul? Or is he what? Just, a potential forever. So I think we need some guys like that on the field. I can think of a few others actually that you might want to see. I think there's some depth at prop that we should explore, because you look at England, they're stuck too much with, Joe Marler and Dan Cole. And at some point you wake up and you don't have 25 test backups. So that'd be good too.
Something else that bothered me a little bit. The Boks released a couple of players. The Sharks especially, got the benefit of that. Trevor Nyakani and Andre Estreisen and Fassi and Mapimpi and everybody. And they go play in a Currie Cup match and they lose against Griquas. What do you think of that?
They fell into the big hole. Kimberley's a hard place to play.
It's about cohesion, isn't it?
Talking about going from Durban to Kimberley. Hello. It's culture shock. It's almost like if you lived in Durban and played in Durban, it'd be less of a trip to go play in Dublin than it would to go to Kimberley. I don't know. Currie Cup's funny. Griquas is everyone's second team, right? Everyone likes the Griquas. They're fun to watch. I don't know. Someone asked me, a guy who does pods in America, he said, what is the Currie Cup? And I said, well, it's different from what it used to be. And it's very difficult to encompass and delineate and define, but it's somewhat of a farm system. It's also a rehab system. You might have a World Cup winner playing next to a guy, this is his dream, is to just play one time in the Currie Cup.
No, it's interesting. There's a lot of debate going around whether the Currie Cup still has a right to exist, but I think it does. And it looks good. I mean, the Lions beat the Pumas 75-21 after the Pumas beat these same Griquas last weekend that just beat a team full of Springbok-laden Sharks. It's such a funny tournament. Anyway, the Rugby Championship is coming up very quickly now, and Australia and New Zealand are the ones we're keeping an eye on. Just briefly, what did you think of the All Blacks against England?
Oh, it was fantastic. Fantastic series that came down to a couple of moments. Nobody was perfect. There were plenty of errors, but you could see what England is. You could see what they're playing and how they're playing. And I do think that just like Ireland won that and drew the series because they know who they are, I think England knows who they are now. And I think that's trouble for England's opponents. I think New Zealand was under a bit of a shock. Super Rugby doesn't have that kind of hard nut chasing 1, 2, 3 close to the ruck, a bit of a different shape of pod, so it's really hard. Interestingly enough, All Blacks came out of trouble with their scrum. They had really good impact players, and Bowden Bok beating Boston Barrett came to the fore and said there is quality, there is timeless form. And it is also one of those moments where I thought, oh, that guy really is a game changer, because there were things he did. He did a chip over England and then he volleyed it. He volleyed the ball and kicked it again, just like instinctive stuff. Loved it. I think England will go away from that series feeling pretty good. I think Borthwick can honestly look at his players in the eye and say, you guys took New Zealand to the wire in New Zealand. How many teams do that over the years? Yeah.
I think England were ready for the win. I think England just faded away towards the end a little bit. I don't know if it was, form or fitness or what that was. And then obviously we WhatsApped and I said about all the benches, and you said it looks like that's true. And it came down to final 20 minutes. Who can you bring on? Yeah. Yeah, and Bowden Barrett, I mean, he's a game wrecker, like you said. He was the difference between those two teams. That small, a bit of a difference, and he's the one that made it. I think that last line out of two, I think England must have fancied your chances. The thing with England is we're going to be playing them in November. And like you just said, England now is now a dangerous team. It's now sort of clicking now, starting to gel. The Boks, I think they're facing an uphill battle the next couple of months.
Yeah. But I think how Ireland is to us, we are to England. Like, we just always seem to find a way to beat England, even when we shouldn't. And so I think it's probably like we're a bit of a psychosis for them. They see the Springboks listed on Twickenham and they go, no. And also it's a bit of a home game sometimes with the expats in London. That try by Tommy Freeman, there were some miracle tries this weekend. Australia scored one with a chip over from Kellaway and a collect. But the try by Tommy Freeman in the air,
brilliant.
Ooh, that's trouble without Lekkerbecks being a little bit tiny. I don't know about that. That Marcus Smith on the one thing he really can do is punt to a player. Like he actually spots him and goes right there, and it'll be on target. He must be phenomenal at hitting a target with the side kicks.
Yeah, like you said, those English wings are quite tall. I think you're right. Marcus Smith had two of those tries. He made two of those tries. And that bothers me.
Yeah.
Again, we don't have that. Mani has that. Mani has many other things there's many other things that Mani doesn't have. That worries me. We don't have that complete player. I'm not that convinced about Pollard. I hear what you said earlier, but I'm a little worried. I must be honest. These All Blacks are not clicking. Razor's still finding his feet and not the finished article yet. I see lots of calls now to drop Dalton Papali'i, move Savia to the flanker, and move Ricky Ioane from centre. A lot of proposed changes and the likes. The All Blacks have an upward curve, on an upward curve. Things can only get better. I'm not that sure that things can only get better for the Springboks. I'm a little worried that we've plateaued a bit.
Well, we started the most experienced Springbok team in history last night. So that tells me what the antidote or vaccination is, or whatever it's called, is youth, but properly applied. We have to find those slots and say, this is where we need it. And I think Sasha is one of those, by the way.
No,
so
sure.
Could we go up? I think we can. But I'm worried about our loose trio. I worry about this idea that we're locking ourselves into symbolic, mandatoriness. You cannot drop Sia. If you drop Sia, you're betraying the flag or the values. Come on, man. I mean, Sia would be the first one to say, I don't want to have, special favors. I want to earn my spot. And he would not have been playing in the series on merit. And there's no way when you said to yourself, who's a form number 8 in South Africa? No one would say Quaka. Exactly 0 people would say Quaka.
Not even remotely.
Yeah.
Something else, potential banana peel. In Australia, 2 games in a row. And Australia's not looking bad at all. Joe Schmidt is starting to, turn that ship around. Maybe not quickly, but definitely.
Oh, we never beat Australia in Australia, and they never beat us in South Africa. So it's literally like you just look and see where they're playing their Wallabies Springboks games, and you can make a lot of money just staying with that adage. One whammy would be, where. So I think there's just like us, there's a couple of places like Perth is not a good place for Wallabies to play against Boks.
Yeah, but that's mini South Africa. Sydney, that's why. Yeah,
it's Durban East. But no, I think if they play in Sydney, they play in Brisbane, they should win. They probably will win. And we won't learn very much. And someone told me one time, we know what we're not good at when we play Australia because they show us what it is. They're just very good at finding the little chinks in the armor and the little tiny wrinkles we don't have. So if we persist with what we're doing right now, we'll get beaten and get beaten well. We can change, and there are things we can do where the Australians will be really jarred by. And I think a hyper-physical, in your face, smash rugby would be the way to go.
Yeah, that sort of seems more like Springbok rugby to me anyway. Physical, hard. I don't think the Aussies are all that hard yet. I mean, there's quite a young team as well. Something else I want to just say in closing. I immensely enjoyed Georgia beating Japan. For the simple reason that I think, from what I've heard, from the guys I speak to in Japan. Frans Ludeker was in the inside lane to become the next Japan coach, and then Eddie flew in and hijacked it. So it's sort of karma to me. I want to just put it out there.
Eddie lost his way. Something happened with Eddie 4 or 5 years ago. And I actually think it was those Boks that did it to him in Yokohama. I don't think so. Sometimes you never recover from a loss. I think Eddie never recovered from that World Cup final, and he's been trying to do everything since haphazardly without any logic. And I think it also turned him a little bit nasty, like personally, because no one wants to be around him right now. So Japan will follow him because they're a little bit more go with the flow kind of culture, but in the end, it's not going to work there either.
Okay, Harry, you're on your way back to America. We'll talk again soon. Thanks for that. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride in Republic. I really enjoyed hanging out with you and meeting the family. So I'll be back for the All Blacks test. So we'll see you then.
This is the Lekker Rugby Pod with Harry Jones and Welman.